Now again, you could keep on going with experiment after experiment. There are lots of studies that show how to sweat this approach of extremeness aversion even further. So for example, there are studies from Shotton and Liechtenstein that show most of the ways that this idea is used are incorrect. Most people show the cheapest product, then the middle product, then the most expensive. Shotton and Liechtenstein have shown that on average, you'll increase revenue by 4% if you flip that order. Most expensive, middle, cheapest. Because they call this the order effect of anchoring. It's the first number that we see that is most important at setting our expectations. So yes, many of your companies might already be offering a gold, silver and bronze package, but I bet most of them are offering it in the wrong order. So if you're applying some of these ideas, there's always a nuance out there that can make those ideas even more powerfully applied. So that's the kind of first principle of the psychology of pricing, relativity. The second principle is people tend to respond to numbers naively rather than fully thinking through what they represent. So I'll give you an example of a study I've done here. And this was with an American audience. We got 282 people together, and we told them about Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. And we said, you're in a supermarket, it costs $18.99 for a 12-pack. How good value is that? And 13.7% of people thought that was either good or great value. Next group of people, we give them the same product, the same price, but we added on a couple of extra words. We said that's the same as $1.58 a bottle. And when you do that, you see a more than doubling of that proportion of people who think the product is good or great value. Now you're up to 28.6% now. That is a tiny, tiny tweak that has a significant effect. Because people respond to the numbers that are in front of them. They won't slice and dice those numbers in all the possible permutations so they become comparable to everything else in their life. The onus is on you as a brand to think, how can I communicate these in a way that best reflects on me? So don't talk about the fact that your product costs £10,000. Say that it costs you £960 per month. Or even better, it costs you $96 per person per month. The more you slice and dice that number, the better it will look in comparison. Because what people tend to do is just think what they could alternatively do with the figure that you've put in front of them. And if you talk about 10,000, that sounds like some major investment they're going to have to make big sacrifices for. But if you start talking about 96 per person per month, it feels like something that should be in the tea and biscuits line. And you can change how the price makes people feel with these very simple tactics. You can see this certainly in the consumer world. Camden Hells don't talk about £18 for a 12-pack. They talk about £18 for a 12-pack. That's the same as £1.50 a can. Or you can see it from opticians, not telling you the total price, talking about the 20p a day. Very, very simple tactics that can be applied at no cost to your brand, and you can see the results very quickly. Now, I'll give you one final study in this area of people responding to prices naively. And it comes from Uber. So Uber have a well-known behavioural science team. And if you've been in an Uber, you've probably been in one of their experiments. And that's a great data set because you don't know you're taking part in an experiment, so you don't behave differently. And they have a huge number of people in this data set. So they've got great statistical significance. And what they've been testing recently is surge pricing and how people respond. And in their basic test, some people are shown a surge price for 2x, others are shown a surge price for 1.9x. And what you see is a significant jump beyond what you'd expect mathematically when people see that 1.9 price. Now, in psychology, that's known as charm pricing. It's the idea that people have a left-hand digit bias. They don't think of 1.9 as the exact amount, they just think of it as one something. And that makes them behave wildly different and much more bigger change than you expect from what is a tiny change in the price. But that's a very well-known application. The other interesting thing that came from Uber's study was a less well-known point about precise pricing. So they found there was this significant jump in acceptance of surge pricing when they dropped the price by a very small amount. More counterintuitively, they found there was an increase in acceptance of surge pricing when they also increased the price. So people who saw a surge price of 2.1x were more likely to accept that price than people who saw the rounded number of 2x. The argument here is that people think round prices are marked up to a higher degree than precise prices. So if people see a price for £10,000, what they'll be thinking is, well, we know that there's a markup. That product isn't worth 10,000, maybe it's worth 9, maybe it's worth 8. Whereas if they see exactly the same product for £10,355, they still know it's marked up. But when they come down in terms of their calculations for what its real price is, they come down in much smaller increments. So they think, okay, it's not worth 10,355, maybe it's worth 10,255 or 10,155. By switching from round prices to precise prices, you shift their perception of value. People have a simple rule of thumb that if it's round, it's probably been overly marked up. So it's a rare situation in which you can actually increase your price and you can increase willingness to pay.